welcome to my Stitch With Me. As you can see by the title of this video, I am stitching on Apple Blossom Mini by Marianne Broome. It is my work whip, which didn't actually work on this week, but anyway. I chose this one today not only because I didn't work on it this week, but because I've had a couple of questions about the way I stitch on it, or the way I've been stitching recently, and it has the most number of, I guess, methods that I've had questions about on it. So I'll set that up and show you how I do it. Apologies in advance if you do hear my son throughout this video. He is playing with friends. They get rowdy on computers, but still. I am going to, before I show you the stitching, I will show you how I mark it off on Pattern Keeper. I'm not going to show enough for it to really break copyright. You won't be able to stitch from what I've shown you, so that's fine. I will do this kind of in parts. I will stitch like I did for my birthday start, where I'm talking to my computer at the same time as stitching, and then I'll sort of break into my voiceover, just because I can stop and start with my voiceover, so if I run out of things to say I can just pause, but also I can speed it up. Stitching on 28 count while recording is a little bit awkward. That's why my Stitch With Me whip was going to be something else, but I'm rambling. Before I get started and let you into the main part of the video, I'd just like to say thank you to all of my new subscribers. I will obviously mention this again in my normal video in case you don't watch Stitch With Me's, but I've had quite a large uptick recently, so I'm not sure how that's happened. If someone's mentioned me, please let me know in the comments below so I can go and thank them properly. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know why my videos are sort of gaining a little bit more traction. I am grateful and I hope you find a reason to stay. But yeah, I think that's about it. I have had to record this intro a couple of times, so I hope I have covered everything. It is what it is. If I haven't, I'll either put it in the description box below, or it wasn't important anyway. But I will get into the stitching, and yeah, happy stitching if you're stitching with me. Thanks, guys. So I will press record on my phone and we can get started. So I know I'm showing you a bit of the chart. It's not enough that you're going to be able to actually stitch it, so I think it's okay. But you can see I've used the parking function on Pattern Keeper to mark the zigzag that I'm working towards. So I speak about Hannah all the time. I mention her in pretty much every one of my videos. I did learn this feathering method from her. So I go through and I have marked the entire chart with the feathering method. So I can stitch however way I go. And then when I actually park a thread, I have discovered recently that you can actually change the direction of it. So the feather is the bottom left, and when I've actually parked it, it is top left. So that is how I use Pattern Keeper. Let's just plug this in because apparently I can't keep tablets charged to be able to stitch with them. Though to be fair, I was stitching quite a bit this morning when Elise was at dance. So I just don't want it to die halfway through the recording because that would not be cool. Let's see if I can get it to where I need it to be. Okay, so that's ready to go. So I've showed you the zigzag, and as you can sort of see on what I've got here, I work in 10 by 20 blocks. I've just found it's my happy spot. 10 by 10 was a bit, not a bit much, but this isn't a max color. I do a lot of max color charts, so I was finding that 10 by 10 didn't give me enough stitching time before I had to swap colors. But anyway, so again, thank you, Hannah, for putting up with my absolute idiocy. You have, when stitching like this with parking, you work bottom up. That way you just don't get the parking threads or the waist threads in the way. So I start here and stagger up. So today we are stitching in the 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 up here. And then once I've finished that, I will come down and do these 2 blocks. So as you can see, I do have 2 of these like needle miters I made myself. That is so I can keep the parked threads out of my way. So looking at these, the best way to explain it would be this block. So when I came to stitch it, I would take those threads away and wind the ones not needed. And when I park in the top left occurrence of that stitch. So there may be, you know, not hundreds, but heaps of stitches down here and a single one up the top. I would stitch or park it in the one up the top. And that way, when I go to stitch the parked threads, I take the thread that's on the bottom left. I would pull these ones up, wind them out of my way, because that's the top occurrence of that stitch. I'm working down. So I'm not trying to dodge parked, you know, any other threads I might have parked. Everything under that is clear. So I would park that, or, you know, work that, either park it again or waist thread it or finish it, as it may be. And then I would come in with my needle to make it easier. And these are all on the top. So I would just pull this one here because it's on the furthest on the right, pull it out of the way, and then stitch it. So that's how I manage the parked threads. So I'm not trying to dodge them and they're not getting in my way. And I haven't had an issue with it. Now, I learnt that trick from Teresa Craig. Haven't seen a video from her in a really long time, but I will link her channel in the chance that she does start again. So I will try and zoom in and show you how I start my threads, because I think that was one of the questions at least, and then I will show and explain how I do the waist threads over here. Now, this is not the correct way, this is my way of doing it. I have learnt from a lot of people and sort of made it my own way. I will link and mention anyone that jumps out at me as having taught this, but I'm sure there are plenty of other people who I might have seen in like an offhand way or have also seen do this. So my list of inspiration is not exhaustive, but I will do what I can and shout out who I can. So the single thread loop start that I'm about to show you, I believe I learnt from Pam's Crafty Corner, and again, anyone I mention I will link below. But guys, like, I have watched so many different videos trying to come up with my own method and own way of stitching. Can I zoom while it's recording? Yes, I can. Can I move it? Poorly. I have to I'm sorry, I probably should have stopped and started again. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so hopefully that's zoomed in enough and we'll be able to show, but let's get started. So once I've worked all of the park threads, which is what you can see I've done here, I start the top left and just work them through. So this is the next one. So I stitch, this is probably Okay, let's pretend this square is like hole here, hole here, hole here, hole here. Like the 10 by 10 block is a full like square. When I stitch, I come up the bottom left and go down the top right, and then I come up the bottom right and go down the top left. That is my standard cross. Sometimes, depending on things around it, I may switch it up, but that's, 99% of what I stitch. So that does matter when you're starting a loop start single thread. So I will go down in the top left hole, and then I pull it and have a tail, and I will hold that and anchor it in. It's a little longer than normal just so I can sort of keep my hand out of the way, and then you come up your top right and pull it all the way, bump the light, and then you go back down the top right, trying to get this. So don't just pull it straight through, go slowly, leave a little loop there. Then this is where it sort of comes in. So I normally start on bottom left, so I would come up and then catch through the loop and then pull. And so you've got a little knot kind of loop there, and then go just behind it. This is really hard to do and stay out of the way. Just behind it, and then when you pull down, and again I still hold the tail, the little bump goes to the behind and is good. So then you can just come up and stitch the second leg of your stitch as per normal. And again, I hold the tail here just so it doesn't catch and become messy. And then that is done. And when I'm, next time I put the needle down and pick up my scissors, I just snip it off quite close and you can't see it. So we will just stitch for a little longer. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way because it is looking scarily close to my hand and picking up far too many details that I am not necessarily comfortable with. I might actually zoom this back out a little bit and then speed it up, and I will come back to you in a second. Okay, so I have found a blog post from Trisha, the left-handed stitcher, and she's got sort of a collection of tags, so I thought I'd work through a couple of those just because my brain is dead and I can't actually think of anything to randomly chat about. So I will try and keep them somewhat stitching related, and hopefully it's not too, I guess, abrupt going from tags to showing you my work. So the first one is called the Teresa tag. I will link both the blog and the tags that I end up doing in my description as well. This has got 10 questions, so I'm not sure how far we'll get into it before my actual talking cuts back in. Anyway, number 1, do seasons affect your stitching pattern? Do you stitch less in the summer? I don't think so. The only reason it might be less in the summer is because there's not as much dance. It's one time of the year where dance doesn't have anything on, there's no competitions, there's no performances sort of from Christmas shutdown right through to the beginning of the next term. But also, again, sorry for Samuel, my kids are sort of at the age where I'm able to stitch more at home, so it kind of equals out. I don't have the non-guilty stitching at the studio during class time, but I'm also not out and about with competitions, so I don't notice a change in my stitching. My mood affects the amount much more than the seasons do. Number 2, do you prefer stitching with a lap stand, on the floor, or in hand? So I kind of already have gone over this, and I'm not sure if it's before this clip or after this clip, but I do use the Lowry work stand. I've got, floor, desk, and the desk clamp, so I will stitch in hand if necessary, but definitely prefer the two-handed with the Lowry. Number 3, do you prefer stitching with a hoop, Q-snap, frame, or in hand? And as you can see from my Stitch With Me, I do use the Q-snap. I've tried a hoop before, the little spring hoop. It wasn't too bad. The tension was really good. I don't know whether the one I used was just too small, so it was sort of frustrating to have to change it all the time. But that one's not too bad, and I do want to find out where I've hidden that for some of my smaller pieces, though I am considering buying a 6x6 Q-snap for those as well. And once again, we'll also stitch in hand if necessary. I've got a few pieces that are too small for my Q-snaps, and sometimes I just couldn't be bothered putting the project on the Q-snap to stitch it. Number 4, do you use a stitching light or no additional lighting? If yes, do you use a floor light or a clip-on light? At home I use the clip-on OttLite, but unfortunately it has to remain plugged in. When I go out and about, if I can, I have a Mighty Bright Hammerhead light, but if necessary, as always, I will stitch with what I've got and can use no additional lighting. I'm about to come back as me, so I will finish off this tag after the next section. So I'm ready to end off a thread. I will maybe try and grab my scissors to show you. So I've got the row here of threads that I have kind of parked as waste threads. They're not what we're going to go into right now. I always leave a at least a 10 stitch gap. I think it's more like 17 stitches because I'm pretty sure you can tell I don't just thread it out. I pull it up, put it down one, and then thread it out before I cut it. I just found when I was only doing sort of the one thread out, it wasn't as secure as I would like it to be. I work in a Q-snap. I often take my projects out and store them in the storage bags, so I just found that putting the little extra there just gave it a little bit more anchorage. So these ones are all parked from this row here. So just to try and show you without stabbing my fabric, pull these up and out of the way, hopefully. So you can see I've already got a couple of parked threads from what I'm working on already. So I go through, obviously finish the cross. I pull that up, I think from memory, I go up 7, down 9, and up 10. So I probably don't have to be that specific, but I really like that it lines up and it's pretty. I know exactly where to do it. I don't have to think too much. So the stitch finished here. I usually try and pull it pretty much straight across. So I go up in number 7, down in number 9, without getting in the way, and then I come up in number 10. And then if you can see from the ones already sitting there, I then allow sort of 20 stitches worth of thread, and then I cut it off. So it's just nice and neat and secure. And then when I go to stitch a row, I just, let's cut this one now because it'll be stitched soon. Oh, but I'll just show you. Sorry, I should have been more organized. So with this one, pull it up taut and then snip super close If there's a little bit of a fuzz, I either just run a threaded needle through it and the thread will pull through. That's usually what I do on a 28 count, or I do have a snag nabbit for my 18 count. But anyway, to show you how I would then sort of get rid of these, because obviously if I was to start stitching in this next 10 by 20 square, they're in the way. So before I start stitching, I would go through and just pull up that thread just with my needle, pull it through, and as I do with the tails to start, I go right in and snip it close. So it's already been stitched over 10 threads, it's not going anywhere, and yeah, that's just how I do waist threads. I'm not sure if that's how they're supposed to be done or if that's how everyone else does them, but yeah, that's how I do it. It is kind of bugging me that they're not neat. I've tried to think of a way to fix that. My first thought is maybe a soft toothbrush, but is that going a bit too far? But yeah, I've found it has worked perfectly. I think I've mentioned before, I can't get one of my frames at work, so obviously I'm stitching two-handed here to show you. I love my Lowry frames. I've got a desk clamp, I've got the desk stand, I've got 2 full floor stands, but with the kitchenette that I stitch in at work, I'm not going to take a floor stand in as much as I want to. That's a bit extra, so I just stitch in hand, and it's easier when you're stitching one-handed not to have to flip it and deal with it. But yeah, I actually really love this way of stitching. Sorry, the rocking will probably be bothering you. I don't stitch this way with all of my whips. No, I don't. I still like Extreme Cross Country, and I am starting diagonal stitching on another one of my whips, and I've got a couple of other fun methods that I'm trying out, but I am getting more and more whips stitching this way, and kitting them up is helping. So you may have noticed on Instagram I have not been stitching as much as usual, and that's because I've been spending time kitting. I eventually will have all of my 80 or so whips kitted like this. This isn't fully kitted, it's just a couple of strands of each colour that I need, but it means that I've got everything I need ready to go. But yeah, sorry for talking your ear off towards the end. I will, I guess, go in and stitch some more. I've got it zoomed in a bit, and I think I'm just going to once again speed it up and put a little bit of voiceover on, and I'll stitch for I don't know how long. I don't think there's too many colours in these blocks, so I might finish the 10 by 20, or I'll just call it when I do. But otherwise, thanks for spending time with me. Let me know if you do have any other questions or want any clarification or anything about what I'm doing. As I said, my method's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different ways, and this is what works for me. But I'm more than happy to talk to it or figure out what works for you and help you to figure that out as well. But yes, I'm going to turn off my camera now and put something on to watch while I stitch. And yeah, I will see you in a fortnight for my July update. See you then, guys. Bye. Okay, so back into the tag. Number 5, do you use a magnifier? If yes, do you use one with an arm that clips on or glasses? At this stage, I do not need to use a magnifier, thankfully, so I do not have one. I'm sure that will change, especially as I've made a lot of my projects either 28 or 32 count fabric, but as it is now, I don't need one. Number 6, do you stitch one-handed, two-handed, or both? Again, I've kind of already covered off on this. I stitch both. I definitely prefer two-handed. I just find it a lot quicker, but you work with what you've got, and sometimes you've just got no other option but to stitch one-handed. Number 7, do you prefer to stitch alone in a quiet place or around the family and in a living area? I don't know if I've got a preference. I definitely get more done if I'm, alone in a quiet place with something on in the background, but I also like that cross stitch is something I can do while spending time with family. I tend to do a lot of my stitching, especially recently, with my knee in bed, so less in the common area. But again, I take what I can get. Number 8. What is your preferred fabric and preferred count of that fabric? So I use a lot of Aida, but also a lot of even weave for full coverage pieces, which is a lot of my work, either 18 or 28 count. I wasn't a huge fan of the 25 or the 32 for full coverage, but I do have a lot of sampler style or non-full coverage. I do like 1/1 on 32 count. The only thing I've found so far that I do not like is linen, but otherwise I'm pretty open to whatever I've got. Number 9. In your time stitching, have you ever lost your stitchy bug? If so, how many times have you lost it and how did you get it back? It's actually funny that that's one of the questions because I'm kind of have lost it at the moment. I don't know if I pushed myself too hard to finish Haystack, like the second part, or whether I just got burnt out. No, it's kind of the same. I don't know. I lost my stitchy bug after finishing Haystack. I think the only thing keeping me going is that I need to work on this every single day. I'm at 929 days and I'm not breaking that streak. So I'm guaranteeing that I'm pulling it out at least for a single stitch every single day. I'm working on things most days at work just because I don't know what else I would do on my lunch break. I know eating lunch sounds like it would be the logical answer, but yeah, I have lost it like a couple of other times in 2020 with the world doing what it did. I was feeling really restless when I was stuck at home, so I started a lot of whips trying to find that calm. So honestly, I haven't lost it that many times, but when I do, I try to just push through. Eventually, I find the love for it again, and yeah, I don't ever dislike it enough that I resent my time stitching, so I'm really lucky in that sense, and I do have enough whips to work on that give a bit of variety, so if I'm not feeling one thing, I can always work on something else. And number 10, the last of this tag, do you travel and stitch? Would you / do you stitch on public transport or is it a home hobby only? I definitely travel and stitch. I've said a number of times at this stage, most of my stitching is done outside of the home. I take any size project. I've taken my super size whips with me before, like it's not difficult for me, or I don't think it's excessive. I don't use public transport. If I was on a train, if it's like it's sort of shown in the TV, in the movies, I would probably stitch then. I can't imagine stitching on a bus though. But yeah, I definitely take my stitching out and about and take it with me everywhere. So there is that. We might try and start another tag. I'm not sure how far I'll get into it, but I don't know what else to talk about for the next couple of minutes, so why not? This one is Joy of Cross Stitch tag. Again, I will pop it down below. It looks like it's by Cat Crazy Creations. Number one, how did you learn to stitch? A friend introduced me to it when my son was young because I needed something to do. It didn't quite stick at that time, so I've pulled out a couple of times between then and when it became an actual thing in 2018. A combination of her showing me the basics, playing trial and error with how I liked to stitch, and YouTube's definitely helped, but a lot of trial and error to find what I liked. And number two, have you ever taught anyone how to stitch? I've taught a couple of people. I don't believe any of them are still stitching though. I like to think it's not because of my teaching, and it's just because it is a hobby that requires a lot of patience and perseverance, and it's not for everyone. And number three, when you stitch, do you like to watch TV, listen to music, or just have quiet? I don't like quiet, not that I get a lot of it with Screaming Sun, but I will either watch TV through Netflix, listen to podcasts, or watch YouTube. But that's coming to the end of my stitching. I believe I do come back to you again quickly to chat. If not, thank you for watching. Okay, so I don't know how long this recording is going to actually be because, I sped up, but I can't tell what I've done wrong. I might have to frog some things, I might have to fix some things, but rather than trying to figure it out from up here, because obviously I can't get through with my phone, I am going to just call it here. Sorry if it was a shorter video, but yeah, you don't need to see me figuring things out from a distance. Thank you again for spending time with me and allowing me to show you my way of doing things, and I will see you soon. Bye. And in case anyone was interested, this is how the back of the project looks when stitching the way I've just shown you. Thanks again, guys. Bye.